Ahchwa. Burst your bonds, breaker of chains. Don't that remind you of Game of Thrones? The dragon queen breaking your chains, right? Something about these dragons are always associated with freedom, which is why Benjamin Franklin was, attempting to get the green dragon as the symbol of America. The breaker of chains, freedom. Who's the dragon rocking with? I never heard of Jesus rocking with a dragon. But I know that Joshua, though, Cuzco, though, Dawid, though, Prester John, though. So we got to get back into our ancient love song. I'm doing this for the family. I'm doing this for the tribe because it's important. You know what I'm saying? For all the veil and all the spell to be removed from our eyes, to have a dragonfly perspective and see 360 degrees. I'm not doing it for separation. I'm doing it for unity. To know what's written and to use common sense. To be careful who we agree with. Because whether we're talking Jew or Christian, only one of them is in the hood teaching you anything. You might wake up and dig on some drop and then compare it to the so-called Jew and see what they talking about and then get some more clarity. But whatever they talking about, they are for sure ain't going to be teaching your black ass. Oh, nah. They your enemy all the same. Indigenous, autochthon, Negro, my nigga, my naga. Oh, they're all your enemies. Trust me. You are the real Hebrew. You are the real cross, the real Hebrew, right? The real vortex. And that's why we get the clarity for the vortex. Because it's no hijacks allowed. We hijack free. No hijacks allowed, man. So when you deal with the ultimate, when you deal with the twist, it's time to put the story together. If we're talking chronology, we're talking the birth, the actual birth and when, according to Flamenco, Anatoly. Oh man, is this Christ being born in 1052 or 1152 AD? Well, then now we better be talking Joshua, because I know we ain't talking JC. And if Jesus is Joshua, then that story better rock. The energy better rock. All that fighting and all that slaying that Joshua had to do is not reflected in that Jesus story at all. Getting you to your promised land literally is not reflected in that Jesus story at all. But you got a bunch of words and a bunch of wing wham that's been stolen and remixed. Because it sounds so good. Remember, the story is only to get your heart, to get you focused on one character, when all throughout your Tanakh you were focused on the Creator. Now you're focusing on this so-called Messiah. And every time you pray to the Creator, you got to put such and such, HaMeshiach, Yeshua HaMeshiach, all through the name of Jesus, all through the name of Yeshua HaMeshiach. When did you learn this? Who taught you this? Who taught you this? And would you be saying that if you weren't invaded? Would you say, I'm praying to the Creator in the name of Quetzalcoatl? I'm praying to the Creator in the name of Joshua. Oh, Creator, oh, I love you. In the name, through this HaMashiach, would you do that through David? Oh, I'm praying to you through David. Nah, you would say, I'm a descendant of David, and your covenant with David is real. And even you say in Jeremiah, Hawa, that you're going to break our bonds. And these foreigners, these invaders, these hijacks would no longer enslave us into perpetual bondage. Papal bull. Or we're going to talk about the bulldog. We're going to talk about the bull god. And they shall serve Ahchwa and David, their king, whom I will raise up for them. Whom I will raise up for them. Whom I will raise up for them. Are you going to say Jesus is David? Oh, well, that story better rock with David's frequency. Oh, it better. You better be right. Because you playing with fire. And David got the fire. Did you forget? We're talking an immortal priest king. Now, we're going to get it from this Jewish, and then we're going to get it from the Christian. And again, only one of them is coming into the hood. Only one of them is force converting you. Only one of them is chopping up your priests and your mothers and your sisters and your sons and your daughters just to get you to say the word Jesus. Now you love saying the word Jesus, and you forgot what the energy of the HaMeshiach feel like. And it leads to confusion for our people in the fourth quarter of the game that need to see clearly. They don't have to go through nothing to get to their creator. Hijack free. They don't have to say anything in the name of the HaMeshiach, through the HaMeshiach. They just need to know that the messengers exist. And when the messenger comes, when the HaMeshiach comes, it's only to connect you pure water to your creator and nothing else. David never asked to be included in your prayer to the creator. Joshua never asked to be included in your prayer to the creator, or for you to call on his name and how his name is the great name and the greatest name to be called on, and in his name, in his name, in his name. They got you bamboozled. They got you tripping. And we're here to set the record straight. This is part 3. Get part 1 and 2. Foreigners, invaders shall no longer, no more enslave us, but they shall all serve the creator and Dawit, their Khan, HaMeshiach, whom I will raise up for them. Whom I will raise up for them. Now, what's the confusion? You're going to hear this Jewish. He got plenty of confusion. He's going to go through will versus have. And then he's going to let you know that all these rabbis used to rock pure water with this, David being raised up. But then this commentary, this Talmud commentary got them tripping. It got them on this, son of this and son of David and seed of David and all these other translation remixes. And all we're trying to get back is to our pure water, man. That's why we do it for our tribe. We do it for our flock. And it's not about arguing David versus Jesus, David versus Joshua. Forget all that. It's all about Ahchwa, raising up the breath. David is so important, man. The covenant is so important. Even in the Jesus story, it's so important because he's keep being referred to as son of David, son of David, son of David. So no one's discounting David even there. No one's pushing him aside even there. But what they do when they say, this might be the seed of David or someone called David, but not David himself, because they don't want this copper-colored Khan really coming back, you know what I'm saying, rolling up on them, because David does one thing and one thing, man. He clears the way. Oh, he clears the path for you to get your land, inherit your land, and have your inheritance. That's what Davids do. They don't talk about it. They be about it. And David, your king, your Khan, your forever shepherd, Ezekiel 34:37, one shepherd, David, Hosea 3:5, seek your creator and David, Jeremiah 30, they shall serve Ahchwa and David, whom I will raise up for you. There ain't no confusion. Your priest king is immortal. Wow. Latter day. David has returned as promised to regather the scattered house of Israel, Jacob, and to prepare us for the coming of the great Christ King. Dodge the hijack. Because David is the so-called Christ King. His designs will succeed, for he is the elect of Ahchwa, his birth and his breath, of his spirit. And his designs will be forever, man. We're talking an immortal priest king, man. There's a reason why it's in our Ruach. It's the reason why we've been digging so deep on the priest king, man. So now let's hear from this so-called Jew. He's going to ask, really one fundamental question. Are we talking King David, personally King David, or are we talking David the descendant? And I want you to pay close attention to how he spins this situation. Get the dropout, but prepare yourself for the spin. You're going in the mind of a hijack. Then we're going to get the Christian perspective of this Zeus, and he's going to connect it to Zeus. You know what I mean? It's going to be incredible, man. So, yeah, they're both enemy frequencies, but again, this ain't the one in your hood teaching you about David or discussing David the Messiah with you or discussing any part of the Talmud or Sabbath or anything to do with anything they know with you. So yeah, we got to be very careful when we agree with our enemy. In this case, we have two enemies, and one is calling on Jesus and one is saying, yeah, David or a function or a seed of David is in this messianic frequency. One is saying, hey, I'm not even thinking about David. I got Jesus. And this is who literally our priests and our mothers and fathers were mutilated and crucified literally for not accepting this Jesus down our throats. It's been shoved down our throats. We regurgitated it. We died. We tried to spit it up. We died. We accepted it. We lived. You didn't die for not accepting David as the Mashiach or high messenger. You didn't die for not keeping the Talmud as they know it. You didn't die for that. You didn't get chopped up for that. You didn't get massacred and mutilated for that. You didn't get burned in frying pans and hung on trees for not accepting David. So when we're talking David, we're not talking the oppressor talk. Even though this is a version of the oppressor, of course we know his connection with your oppression. But this Christian, this Jesus, this New Test and all that stuff, this is what we got mutilated for not accepting. This is what we got called savages and enemies of Christ and the Papal Bull for not accepting. Not enemies of David, enemies of Jesus. So be careful who you agree with. Because you got two enemies on two different sides. One of them damn hijacks is correct or more correct. So let's open up our ears, open up our hearts. We do this for the tribe. We do this for unity. We do this for clarity. And it don't have to feel good. It may not feel good. It's breaking the spell and it's out of Ahab. Let's go, man. King David or a descendant of David? Let's check out he spins this flow.
So let's get to the nitty-gritty about the truth whether the Talmud is of the opinion that Messiah can only be from the living, or whether there's a possibility that Messiah could be from those that are deceased. So I'm going to focus on a piece of Talmud that's at the bottom of the page of Sanhedrin 98b, which goes as follows.
Pay very close attention. Don't lose focus for a second. This part is very important. I'm going to focus on a piece of the Talmud on the bottom of the page, right? What's at the bottom of the page? What's at the bottom of the page? The commentary, right? The oral commentary. So, you know how they rock with the rabbis and the oral law over the written law and all that stuff like that. So, you know, just do your recon on how they rock. So they focus on the commentary of other rabbis, and that's how they get their facts. Not off of what is said and what is written and what, you know what I'm saying, the actual, you know, concrete flow is. They say, well, here's the commentary of this rabbi, and this is why he had to dispute this based on this. And then that's taught in their families, and that's why you got some other ones that rock with something else because they follow in other commentaries and other rabbis instead of those commentaries. You know what I'm saying? So they open up the door. So when they open up the door and say it's not the actual David, one, they don't really mess with the actual David like that. They all know he's a copper color man, and they know the drop that he's a copper color Ame'rican. They know Prester John. They know the real. They know, just like Furmanko knows, that this wasn't no birthday happening in the BCs. This birth was happening in 1052 or 1152 AD, which is bringing it all together with the Byzantine Empire, which is bringing it all together with the indigenous Ame'rican. So they don't want that David rock, and they say, well, maybe it's a future David or somebody named David. Now that leaves a fence wide open for these Christians to say, oh, look, I'm going to write the story. Jesus is now connected with David, even though he's an immaculate conception, is not technically anybody's son other than the creator. So he's not an actual David by bloodline, unless you're just trying to say he's from the creator, he must be a David. You see how confusing that gets. But they have to leave the door open for another Mashiach, because that gives them hope. Because if the actual David comes, they ass is grass. If the actual Dawit comes, they ass is grass. If the actual David comes, Prester John, Priest King David, with his dragon, they ass is grass. So they're all working together. They all go visit the Pope together, right? The Jews, the Jesuits, the imams, and all that kind of stuff. And this is what you're seeing in this religious situation. But we're just talking Priest King Prester John. We're just talking King David. We're just talking 1152, 1052. That's right around that 1203 War Genghis Khan situation. And now you really got to put it together. What Mashiach was born and birthed that they're calling Christ in 1152 or 1052. That closes the door on a whole lot of wing-wham. It's way more recent than you think. Oh, it's way more recent, connected to Columbus in 1492 situation. All this is real spill. If you say that Joshua is David, or if you say Jesus is Joshua, then that Joshua better rock with that Joshua. Because this Joshua over here is literally slaying to get you to your promised land. Slaying giants, slaying Ammonites, Jebusites, Canaanites, whoever the hell's in the way to get you to your land. And that's not even brought up in that story over there. That Jesus don't even talk about going to war and putting hands on nobody, right? I know you ain't saying that Jesus is David, because that damn sure ain't David's frequency. Because David is taking out giants. That ain't even mentioned in the Jesus story, right? He just going, and then you only got 3 years from 12, 30, and 33, or 31, depending on who you ask. And that's 3 years for you to prove he's perfecting the law in these 3 years, in this 3-year window you're given in that story. Meanwhile, you got David and all these songs. You got David growing up. You got, you know what I'm saying, this fountain of youth situation connected to Prester John. You got all this stuff. You got Moses, you got Joshua, you got much more time frame to deal with when you're talking the David. You can see him through growing up with Saul and you know what I'm saying, the whole situation with Saul in 1 Kings or 2 Samuel. Then you got, you know what I'm saying, him, you know, becoming king. And then you got all the situation with Judah against Judah. Then you got Bathsheba. And then you got Solomon. So you see how he's rocking and you see what he's overcoming. And then you can dig on the Psalms and all that other stuff. There's so much content for you to put together how David in his life, faults, failures, everything he had to go through to get to where he was at the so-called time of his passing, which we know energy, frequency, vibration, just like the wisdom of Solomon says, only to the unwise do they seem to die. Only to the unwise do they seem to die. So when he talks about death versus life, and if a Mashiach can come from the dead, or does he have to come out of the living? Amen. Only to the unwise do they seem to die. And he's showing a lack of wisdom by even bringing that, you know what I'm saying, stipulation up. The Most High can raise Jesus, but he can't raise up David. But he can raise Jesus, but he can't raise up David, who he loves and who he has a covenant with forever. Since when has the Most High been limited to not be able to raise David up? When all the other prophets are coming back, David can't be raised up because he's in the dead. No, he's an immortal priest king. And some of them know it and they just playing. And some of them, you know what I'm saying, don't even know it. And they, you know, they're just unwise. I don't know which side of the coin he falls on. Pay close attention. He's going right to the commentary, right? Listen what he says.
So I'm going to focus on a piece of Talmud that's at the bottom of the page of Sanhedrin 98b, which goes as follows.
And Sanhedrin 98b is dealing directly with Isaiah 53, which a lot of Christians try to use to say, try to squeeze Jesus in the story. You know what I mean? But let's go. You know, notice he's going to the bottom of the page, but I will drop this link of Sanhedrin 98b, and you can dig on all these rabbis, conversations, and all this stuff. And this is what he's digging on. It's just the commentary. You got the script, but for them, they dig on all this rabbi commentary, right? Let's go, man. Let's go.
Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav that in the future,
in the name of Rav, let's go.
The Jews will have another David, not King David himself, but will seek out another David, and this David will be the Messiah. And this is in Jeremiah verse 9. It says, and they will serve the Lord their God and their King David that I will establish for them. That I will establish, not that I have established. So you see from there the fact that God will establish, that this is not somebody who has already been established as the king, meaning King David, but there will be another David, somebody from the Davidic household.
Is that what that means? I will establish versus I have established. Now we're just talking semantics, will versus have. Now you're just talking translations, who's translating will and have, and in what language, and let's talk diacritic marks, Masoretic text versus these marks versus the vowel points. How are you getting have versus will? Let's just give it a benefit of the doubt. One says have, one says will. I will establish David. I have established David. Because it says I will establish David, he's saying it can't be David. It's saying he will establish, and he's already been established. Done. Bing, pow, bang. That's why we got Dragonfly perspectives, 360 degrees, so that we can say, let's take a step back. It doesn't have to mean I will establish, I will establish David because I've never established David before. Perhaps it's just referring to this particular time with these particular Nagas and these particular ghettos, because even these Jews, right, they say that they were in the ghettos, right? That's when the ghetto terminology first started being used in connection with the Jews, right? So these particular ghettos where you got Nuck Nuck, you know what I'm saying? You got Turtle, you got Black Sam, you know what I'm saying? You got the homies in the hood. These are the indigenous, autochthon, Ame'rican, Khan dynasty Israelites that are the true ones. And it's saying, I will establish David for who? Because if you establish David for our ancestors and you're going to establish him for us, then you're going to say in terminology, as far as tenses are concerned, yeah, I will establish him for them. I will establish him for them as well, right? You can say I will, and it doesn't have to concern the fact that you've established him before or not. For them, you're saying I will establish him. We're talking latter days. You can't say I have established him for Turtle and Nuck Nuck and Peanut and the homies in the hood, Black Sam, when he's not established in their minds. They're calling on Jesus. They're ready to die for Jesus. You can't bring Jesus to these Indians when it's been forced down their throats so many damn times, and our people have died for not accepting this. None of our people that we know have died for not accepting David, man. But is that going to be the, you know what I'm saying? Is that what we get out of this? Is that the solution? Will versus have? Because it says, I will establish him, does it mean he's never been established? Or does it mean he will be established for you? Listen again to how he explains this, man, and watch how he snakes his way through.
Established, not that I have established. So you see from there, the fact that God will establish that this is not somebody who has already been established as the king, meaning King David, but there will be another David, somebody from the Davidic household.
Why does it have to jump way over to it being another David? Why can't I will be concerning us more than his establishment, that he will be established for us today? When Jeremiah 30 literally said, I will raise up David. Jeremiah is saying in the future, David will be raised up. So the Most High could raise up Jesus all day. No one's questioning that. David will be raised up. Whoa, Elijah's going to be raised up. No problem. David's going to be raised up. Whoa. You see the contradiction as he's reading from the commentary at the bottom of the page of the Talmud. Let's go.
Who will then be established later. In other words, according to Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rav, King David will not be the Messiah. This requires a little bit of a discussion as to why it was necessary to negate the possibility that David himself will be the Messiah.
That's what we saying, man. Why is it necessary to negate the possibility that King David, priest, king, Prester John, is not the HaMeshiach? A high messenger, immortal priest king, David, that will return and be raised up to reestablish his people on the land, just like he already established his people time and time again on the land. Wouldn't you have someone who did it before? But because it says I will and not I have, that's all it takes for them to make a conclusion that it can't be this David, it must be that David. One, who's translating this will versus have situation? Two, even if it did say will, does that mean that he was never established or that he will be established for our people today? It's a future tense, man. Is that a body bag that David, priest, king, Prester John, priest, king, Prester John is not immortal? Now he's going to go into the dead versus living thing. Can you get a Messiah out the dead, or does he have to be living to be a Messiah? And I say now you're just looking at it in terms of black and white. And I say this might be a gray area, man. Maybe he never died. Because again, in the wisdom of Solomon, only to the unwise do they seem to die. When you're talking energy, frequency, vibration, and raising up a frequency, it doesn't have to be a dead frequency, man.
The answer to you is that this already is found in the Jerusalemite Talmud, in the second chapter of Barachos, the first of the tractates, the second chapter, very similar to this piece in the Talmud Sanhedrin. They go through the prayers, and the prayers we're praying for the advent, the coming of the Messiah, and they ask in the Jerusalem Talmud there, what is the name of the Messiah? And they go through all the names, all the possibilities, as found in the Talmud here, 98b. With one exception, says Rabbanan Amri, Rabbanan say, if he is from the living, then his name will be Messiah. But if he's from the dead, then his name, if he's from the living, his name will be David. If he be from the dead, then his name is also David.
You got that? We're learning together. I'm not over here because I got a dragon in the race. I'm over here because I know what frequency the dragon is rocking with. I know what frequency the seraph is rocking with. I feel the spiral, you feel the spiral, and you feel a cheater and a hijack and someone cheating you of your information, who has your information and looking at you with a straight face with a smug, which is why they can't get it right. If he's of the dead, he's a David. If he's of the living, he's a David. Real Davids don't die. If he's of the dead, he's a David. If he's of the living, he's a David. One more time, man. One more game.
The living, then his name will be Messiah. But if he's from the dead, then his name, if he's from the living, his name will be David. If he be from the dead, then his name is also David. But the difference between the two is, if you look in the Pnei Moshe, the commentary in the Jerusalem Talmud,
the difference is I got to go back to the commentary of your rabbis to get the truth. He's not saying the difference is, look at this script versus this script, and here we go. The difference is, let's go back to the commentary of what the rabbis are already saying.
His name will be Messiah. But if he's from the dead, then his name, if he's from the living, his name will be David. If he be from the dead, then his name is also David. But the difference between the two is, if you look in the Pnei Moshe, the commentary in the Jerusalem Talmud, is that he will be David himself. In other words, the rabbis of that generation, meaning the majority of rabbis of that generation, believed that Messiah had to be either somebody named David or David himself.
Body bag. Body bag for the illusion. So all the rabbis, the majority of which, knew that either, he is David or someone named David. Now what changed?
And apparently, they must have felt that it would be King David himself.
So let's just stop messing around here, Santa Joe. You're telling me that the traditional rabbis, which probably weren't your color, the traditional teachers, the traditional Hebrew elders, knew that it was King David himself. But you have to go to your commentary to try to disprove it. That opens the door for the Christians to now sneak in another Mashiach that got our brothers today praying in the name of this Mashiach that is so far different, so far, such an excellent new tune. But you knew the real spiel at one time.
It had to be either somebody named David or David himself. And apparently, they must have felt that it would be King David himself. Because otherwise, why does Rabbi Yehuda, in the name of Rav, have to go ahead and prove from this verse of Jeremiah that it's going to be another David, that in the future?
So some rabbi now has to prove differently or try to distract you with commentary, or not you, right? It's in their teaching, right? So they don't care what you think, but they can't rock with the truth because you're talking synagogue of Asatan, right? So he just gave you all the links and all the linkage you need into what the foundational truth is. That in the foundation, they knew King David is HaMeshiach. They knew King David himself is HaMeshiach. But suddenly, they got to write commentary and use one scripture that they're twisting in Jeremiah 9. Let's go.
Future, God will establish a new David. Why would I think that the old David was good to be the Messiah? After all, according to Professor Berger, this is a Lubavitch heresy, that Messiah is from the dead.
According to another rabbi, it's a heresy that the Messiah is from the dead. Again, black or white. They're not counting in the recon that you're doing, that your Ruach is leading you to research immortal priest kings. They're not factoring in Fountain of Youth. Preston John saying, me and my whole tribe took 6 baths in the Fountain of Youth, and each time turned back to the age of 32. If that seems like a myth, then oh boy, this Jesus story sure is unbelievable. If the Fountain of Youth can't be believed, then Jesus walking on water for sure can't be believed. And King David walking on water, oh boy, oh boy. You've been conditioned. We're in a matrix, right? Love to natural by law, we're in a matrix, right? So what makes you think that this David frequency can't re-enter the matrix or has ever left the matrix to guide the children in the matrix today? As a shepherd, as the Most High says in Ezekiel 37, one shepherd. Ezekiel 34, one shepherd. I will place one shepherd. Shepherd for what? To lead you out of darkness, to get you out the matrix. So we're not talking dead versus living. We're talking matrix, and we're talking Neo, like the matrix, right? We're talking the one coming to, establish order. Ain't that what David does? In the matrix? You think there's a future and a past and the present and all that time stuff? You think the time stuff exists? Only in the matrix, not in reality to David. So the whole death versus life talk is absolutely asinine. It is nullified. It's irrelevant because they're not dealing with it being a matrix, a synthetic matrix that a frequency of a David must give order to or free you from the bondage of, unless you want to stay there. But David has always led you back to your land, which once you get back on your land, that kills the matrix right there. Now you're back in the vortex. Now you're back in the crossroads, the cross, the vortex. Because all the shit they talking means nothing if you don't got land, my nigga, my naga. Once you get your land, they stop talking all the bullshit because then it's a real spill situation. You better have the real Joshua rocking with you. You better have the real David rocking with you because Jesus is not proven in that territory of war. Unless you're talking Zeus, which is the god of war, right? So, hey, go for it, go for it. So they rabbis already knew that King David is connected with the real HaMeshiach. But then they put the commentary and they say, well, it's a heresy for him to come out the dead. He must come out the living. And they're both Davids, though. Whether he's in the dead, he's David. He's living, he's David. The difference is it's a heresy for him to come out the dead. And that's now what he's going to shift the conversation to. Well, it can't be the real King David because he's dead. Well, what's Jeremiah talking about in Jeremiah 30? Oh, we got Hosea 3. We're just talking Jeremiah 30. Alas, for that day is great. We're talking future, right? We're talking Jacob's trouble, so that none is like it. And it is time of Jacob's trouble, Israel. But he shall be saved out of it. For it should come to pass in that day, says Ahchwa, that I will break his yoke from your neck, will burst your bonds. See, they don't want, he didn't go to Jeremiah 30. You don't want to talk about your bonds being bursted, because those so-called Jews are not in captivity or bondage to be bursted. Only you are in bondage and in captivity to be bursted. Foreigners shall no more enslave these Negroes, but they shall serve Ahchwa and David their king, whom I will raise up for them. He didn't say seed of David's. I mean, since he wants to hark on a word like will or have, and it says will establish and not have established, well, let's go. Let's talk words. Whom I will raise up for them, David their king. And this is why his OGs, or the real rabbis, knew, yeah, they're talking David. Most High's talking David. Because it don't say seed of David, I will raise up their seed. We're talking one shepherd, man. Oh, but it must be somebody named David. Oh, man. Dodge the hijack. Let go.
Obviously, there was a school of thought that King David would be the Messiah. And Rabbi Huda, in the name of Rav, says, no, it will not be King David. It will be someone from the Davidic dynasty later.
Now that opens the door to Christianity. See how they work and hold hand in hand? Is the reason why our fam is into this shit. It's been constructed for a entire door to be open, a whole fence to be blown open for another Mashiach. And this gives us a whole conversation today. Are you talking this HaMeshiach or that HaMeshiach? When you say praise the Creator, all in the name of the HaMeshiach, of course they're talking Jesus, because they say Yeshua the HaMeshiach, which is just a fancy Hebrew way of saying Jesus. And some are just bold enough to say Jesus. And we say drop the J if you're going to be that bold and speak Greek to me. And see how good it feels when you drop the J. Don't run to the Hebrew. Stay in the Greek if you're that bold. But there's a school of thought that the real King David is the HaMeshiach. But according to this rabbi,
that Messiah is from the dead. Obviously, there was a school of thought that King David would be the Messiah. And Rabbi Huda, in the name of Rav, says, no, it will not be King David. It will be someone from the Davidic dynasty later.
So some rabbi says, no, it's going to be somebody else. And that just makes it so. Why do you think there was a school of thought? Why do you think they thought so? Why do you think it was solidified? And why don't you think they're teaching the Negro this stuff? Because they don't want the Negro to know this stuff. So we're digging on it against their wishes. Again, you didn't lose your life for not accepting this teaching of King David being a high messenger that will be raised up, that will be raised up, that will be raised up. The fact that the Creator is raising David up, you didn't take an L for not believing this. Not from your oppressor, but you might take an L from your Creator if you pushing David to the side for some fanciful seed of David.
This tradition from the name of Rav was accepted in Babylon, But Rav Papa objected to this. Rav Papa was the student of Rava and Abaye, and he asked Abaye, how can we accept the words of Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rav, that we will establish, God will establish for us a new David, when it says in Ezekiel 36, V'avdi David nasi aleim li'elam, my servant David will be the prince upon them forever. Now, the prince, there he's talking about the difference between the kingdom of Joseph and the kingdom of Judah. And that
prince means prince, man. Let's not be confused. Prince forever, king forever, Khan forever. Now we're going back into his interpretation, his rabbinical, bloodlines of interpretation. Oh, prince must just mean the difference of Judah versus Israel. He said prince forever, man. Stop it, man. Stop it, man. Now we're just being silly. Oh, he's not... They got to find a way to explain what prince means. This cat had a solid point. He said, look, man, how can you believe this guy, rabbi in the name of Rav guy, who's saying that it's not David when it clearly says it's David? I will raise up David. David is the shepherd. How can you say something different? And then he goes on to what prince means, man. Snakes in the grass.
How can we accept the words of Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rav, that we will establish, God will establish for us a new David, when it says in Ezekiel 36, V'avdi David nasi aleim li'elam, my servant David will be the prince upon them forever. Now, the prince, there he's talking about the difference between the kingdom of Joseph and the kingdom of Judah, and that it is David who will be the prince. It won't be the tribe of Ephraim or Menasseh from the tribe of Joseph, but rather the Davidic dynasty.
So let's read it the way he just said it. But they shall serve Ahchwa, all right, Lord their God, Christian. All right. They shall serve your framer and shaper, and David their king. So there's no prince here, even though he's talking about Ezekiel. He says 36. I think it's 37 in the KJV. They shall, I'm trying to, all right. They shall serve Ahchwa, framer and shaper, and the Davidic dynasty of Judah, whom I will raise up for them. Well, who's them? I'm just trying to put it in context, because he's staying away from this one. He's staying away from this script. Because them is Jacob. Khan, them is Jacob. I will raise up for Jacob. I will raise up the Davidic dynasty of Judah for Jacob. Or I will raise David up for Jacob, for Israel. Even Jesus say, I came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. I think David also comes for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So you don't have to try to redefine prince in order to show that, oh, he's just talking about the seed and just the Davidic dynasty. If it is, it is. But I can't dig on it based on what he's saying. And I can't dig on it based on, some new, excellent new, that's just counterfeiting David, counterfeiting the purpose and the mission of David, yet gives you a completely different breakdown of how to go about it. Because I can see the historic results of David leading his people to the promised land, whether it lasted or not, or reestablishing his kingdom and his land, no matter what the hijack was. He still fought to reestablish his territory and his situation. We know that President John is the emperor of the three Indias, letting us know that David was king of the world. All three Indias, king of the world, whom I will raise up for them. See, it's much clearer. It doesn't leave the door open. Oh, well, for some other seed named David. But even he's not talking Jesus, man. But it leaves the door open, which is why you got websites like Jews for Jesus. Literally, Jews for Jesus. Because they say, oh, okay, well, cool. That must connect with some other Mashiach. He's a son of David, right? That's why they write it in there. Son of David, son of David, son of David. Even they pay homage to Dawid. But our brothers, our sisters, man, that get into this, they don't pay no more homage, man. They don't give it up no more. They're not concerned with the covenant. Even Jesus had to pay homage to David, man. Son of David. Even in those stories with Jesus and the demons and all that stuff, even they were like, son of David. Even they had to call him son of David. I know you got your power, man. You the son of David. What's so powerful about this David that got them shaken? That got them afraid to even acknowledge him and say, you must be some descendant. Then it gives them a leeway to switch it all up and say, oh, well, you're not the descendants, we're the descendants, and da-da-da-da, and da-da-da-da. Because if they talking David, oh, man, they ass is grass. Because they know they talking about a brother. Everybody know President John's a black man. Everybody know who he's coming back from. Everybody know who he's being raised up for. Them, my Nagas, these so-called Negroes. That's their Khan, David. See, it gets real clear. And you see what they're all running from. So when you're calling on a HaMeshiach and you're not concerned with David, you're in the mind of a hijack. Hijack City.
But it talks about my servant David. So Rav Papa is asking Abaye, David has to be the Messiah. That's what it says in Ezekiel. And that contradicts what Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav. So what is Abaye?
So what it says in Ezekiel is contradicting this Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rav. So who you gonna rock with? This Rav guy or the words of Ezekiel, man?
Answer him. Abaye answers him that David will indeed be the Nasi, but he won't be the Melech, he won't be the king.
Whoa. So he couldn't even just make a point, no, it can't be David. It must be the descendants or someone carrying his name. He says, well, David is going to play, but there's going to be somebody over him. Wow. Watch this.
It will be a different king. That king will be a different David. As the Yerushalmi itself says, that he will be called David, but it won't be the original David.
Why not? Why not, man? Ask yourself this. So the original David still plays, but he's going to be second in command, meaning that he's still going to be raised up. But when the Most High says in Ezekiel, one shepherd, right? I mean, come on, man. Come on, man. I mean, we're just talking, what, Ezekiel 37? Let's just, get it again for clarity. Like it's the very first time, because this is what we do. So we're talking about a simple love story, right? Judah and Israel coming back together. The 12 tribes coming back together, right? That's what Jesus said he's here for, to bring the tribes together. This is what the Most High been rocking. So it's not original there. Son of man, right? Son of man. Sound familiar in the New Testament? Son of man. Take thee one stick, write upon it for Judah. All right, then the other one for Israel. Then take another stick, write for Joseph. The stick of Ephraim, for all those in the house of Israel. Joseph and Israel, Jacob, Judah and Israel. Join them together into one stick. They shall be one. They shall be one. All right, so now the tribes are now one. And let's go right here. And I will make them one nation in the land. This is prophetic. Because the tribes have not reunited and came back together in the land. Verse 24, and David my servant shall be king over them, and they shall have one shepherd. Now he just broke it down, super hijack version, that there's two Davids, one descending from another one, but the one that's original is now second fiddle to the one that's descendant of him. And now he's the one that's the main shepherd, and then there's another one that's going to be some type of administrator position. The King David was going to fall back and be like an administrator. And this other David that has no place in script whatsoever, you've never seen him or heard of him before, but his name is also David, and he's going to be the main guy. And that's what the Christians say. Wait a minute, I got the perfect candidate. Jesus. Jesus will be the main shepherd. And then this other David is now being substituted as second fiddle, which is why you don't give a shit about him, because you're digging on that new. It is deep, man. This is deep level magic, man. Look in his eyes when he's speaking. All right, you're getting the drop. One shepherd, not two. Look how he plays David, though. Look how he plays David, whom I will raise up for them.
What will David's role be? David's role will be Palgikaser. He will be the administrator.
Fuck, man. Damn it, man. Damn it. Come on, man. It's crazy. This is crazy talk. I'm serious, man. I'm not even like, I can't, I don't know what to do. We've been talking an hour. We're only 5 minutes into this thing, man. It's how real this is. He just said King David, priest king, is going to come back and be an administrator to some other David.
So itself says that he will be called David, but it won't be the original David. What will David's role be? David's role will be Palgikaser. He will be the administrator. He will be the one in charge of daily activities. Now let's examine this. Rav Papa was objecting to the concept that a new David would...
President John is going to be in charge of daily activities, man. Look at him. Look at this guy, man. Look, I'm just, I want you to get this perspective. We have some time to get this other Jesus Zeus thing, man, but he's just going off of this rabbi commentary situation, telling you that it can't be David because it says will be established versus have been established, even though the will be established is referring to you because it will be established for you. Then it becomes dead or alive, and they're both named David, whether they're dead or alive. He says that, and then there's two Davids now. All right, one's a shepherd, and this is one that's up in the air, and then the other one that we know very well, he's just coming back to be the administrator, man. I just one more time.
Will be Palgikaser. He will be the administrator. He will be the one in charge of daily activities.
Let's go.
Now let's examine this.
Please.
Rav Papa was objecting to the concept that a new David would arise and be the Messiah. That David should have been the Messiah himself. But David was dead already. By the time Rav Papa was talking to Abaye, it was already 1,200 years. When the Talmud Yerushalmi was discussing this, it was 1,100 years after David had died.
Unless David didn't exist in the BCs and you pull in the Anatoly Fomenko recon, and this David actually happened much more recent. It hasn't been that long. And if he's dead already, how could this be so? Wasn't he also dead in Jeremiah 30? Wasn't he also dead here? Didn't First Kings already happen? According to their timeline? Where it says, I will raise up for them. David, I will raise him up. I will raise him up. I will raise him up. Does it mean he's coming from the dead or he's re-entering the matrix? We're talking immortal fountain.
How could David be the Messiah, according to Rav Papa? If Messiah cannot be from the dead, how could David be?
Who said the Messiah can't be from the dead? Jesus died. What's death? You want to talk about it? What's death? Whose concept is that? That's not our concept. We're in the mind of a hijack even thinking about death. We don't die. We multiply. This is the matrix, man. We just come here to set shit straight. We just come here to reestablish order. This is a training ground for us. We are the immortal ones. You die. Synthetics die. Natural spirals. So now he's going to shift the conversation. Before, it can't be David, you know what I'm saying? Because it says will establish, not have established, and all that crap. Now it can't be David because he's dead. And it's a heresy. It's heretic to raise up the dead now, right? You see all these trapdoors.
The Messiah. And the answer is obvious, that Messiah can be from the dead. And that this is a legitimate concept. This is what the rabbis and the Yerushalmi were saying, that David could be the Messiah. Because David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim. We'll explain it in the next video. But clearly from the Yerushalmi, it's clear that this is a distinct possibility. And in fact, Rav Papa accepted this possibility as real. That this was the major opinion of those rabbis, that Messiah would be David.
It's the major opinion that the Messiah will be actual David, even if he is dead.
Not another David. And Abaye didn't go ahead and put Rav Papa in Cherem and excommunicate him and say that his shechita is no good and his wine is no good because he believes that somebody who's from the dead can be raised up as the Messiah. On the contrary, Abaye answered that David will indeed rise up, but he won't be the Messiah.
One more time. So David will rise up. So I think we got, to a consensus that David will rise up, just like it says in Jeremiah 30, whom I will raise up for them. He just now has to play second fiddle to another Mashiach. Well, where's that? Where's that in our Tanakh? That David will raise up, but I got another Mashiach that will actually be the shepherd. Or are we just saying, and David my servant shall be king over them, and they all shall have one shepherd. They'll walk in my judgments, observe my statutes, and do them, all the basics. So now he admits that David will be raised up for them, whom I will raise up for them. But now he's an administrator. All right, you got the drop out, right? You got the drop, right?
And you see from Abaye's answer, as well as from the question of Rav Papa, that the idea that Messiah could be from those who have been deceased is legitimate.
Oh, now you got to take a phone call. That's funny.
From Abaye's answer, as well as from the question of Rav Papa, that the idea that Messiah could be from those who have been deceased is legitimate.
Somebody calling like, all right, man, cut it, man, cut it, man. You talking all over the place, man. So yeah, you know, this is part 3 for a reason, man. I just want to skim these corners, man. Yeah, clearly he's saying that the Hebrew elders, man, already had this established, and then come the rabbis with this commentary, and then now they want to talk about he can't be the Messiah because he's dead and he has to come from the living, or that versus a will versus have. And since it says I will establish, it means that it'll be a whole new person, whether not a whole new situation, but a whole new person. And we can see it as a whole new situation. This king, this Khan, this shepherd will be established for these people here. It will be established for you today, not have been established because you're living today. And of course, we just got the straight up script for those that are reading script. For those that are reading script. But they shall serve Ahchwa and David their king, whom I will raise up for them. If you're calling on or giving all this honor to a HaMeshiach, even though the Creator never said for you to seek Joshua when you seek Ahchwa in Joshua or Jesus or Moses. It says in Hosea 3 and 5, you will seek your Creator. Oh man, I put my thing there. Yeah, man, you will seek your Creator. Oh yeah, oh yeah. You will seek your Creator. Afterwards, the children of Israel shall return and seek their Creator and David. So this is all prophetic because we're talking latter days, man. And if you're seeking Jesus in substitution for the David, for the priest king, Prestor John, priest king, you're substituting, and this is what this whole hijack is doing by giving us an excellent new tune. Now it's causing division. Now it's causing confusion. Because when has reading it and digging on it not been enough? You can read it, and then you can dig on the actual priest-king investigation. You can connect it to the immortal flow. You can connect it to the redeeming flow. When you talk seraph and seraphim and DraKhan, you can connect it to all these things, even put it in the right time frame. And that's what we're going to get on this chronology, this 1052 birth and 1152 birth, leading up to this 1203 Genghis Khan invasion, where he started calling himself King David after taking out supposedly this King David. But only to the unwise do they seem to die. So you're not even talking death or life. You're talking about David being sought after. So by the time you start praying in the name of some other HaMeshiach, the Most High only asked you to seek David after you return, after the children of Israel shall return. You dig? We're just talking about the chronology. The chronology. So you got this link, you can dig on it, got a lot of great drop, man. But the main thing here is when you talk about the shifts of the chronology, you talk about Christ's crucifixion and all that stuff, 33, you got the year 0, and this is, what a team of chronographers are been putting together in Russia. Jesus Christ, 1152 to 1185, 33 years, right? This is where they got him rocking based on chronology outside the canonized Scaliger Petavius, man. And if you're willing to dig on Scaliger Petavius, you better be willing to dig on Fomenko. 1152, not even 10. Not even 1052. 1152. Oh man, it's a lot of work. You can see how they came up to this. You can see how they came up to it, man. They're talking about the shifts. The chronological shift of 1053 years. where this 1053 is really year 1. And they done brushed back your history so far that they got over 1,000 years to play with, man. Where this 1053 would really be the year 1 of this Mashiach's birth, man. Why they keep calling him David the Christ, man? How does Joshua play in this flow? And if again, you know what I'm saying, you've been surfing the wave so deep that you can connect the Joshua under Moses with the David, then that's where you stand. That's where you are. You can say, oh, Joshua will return. But even then, Hosea didn't say to seek Joshua. But if Joshua is David, then you can get into the Yeshuas all day. You can get into the Quetzalcoatlus all day. But that New Test version, that New Test story, is not the same frequency of your Joshua. Has nothing to do with the wars of Joshua, with the promised land that's established under Joshua. Has nothing to do with the real spill of the energy of your priest king warriors. Turn the other cheek has nothing to do with that. This is called syncretinizing, bringing stuff together that don't belong together, bringing an excellent new tune with an ancient love song. I advise y'all to really dig on this. You can dig on the medieval empire of the Israelites. You can dig on history or science fiction. It's a whole book series under the research and Anatoly for the Manko that's going to tie a lot more to you. You know, they go all into it. Let's see if we can get some other drop here. Yeah, they go into the 1154 versus 33 AD. Back into the 1053 year shift that superimposes the phantoms. We're dealing with phantoms and duplicates. 1 century AD over the 11th century AD. This erroneous point of view that the ancient chroniclers adhered to was further rediscovered by G.F. Novinsky in his analysis of the medieval calculations related to the Passover and the calendar. All right, in Chronicles Annex, or Chronicles 6, so that's one of his books. Yeah, man. This is Pope Gregory Hildenbrand from the 11th century AD as a replica of Jesus Christ. Andronicus from the 12th century, a chronological shift of 100 years. The Scaligerite chronologists have subsequently moved the life of Christ 1,050 years backwards into the 1st century. Why would they have to do this? Because then they got to bring it up and you're going to have to rock with the real thing, the real Joshua or the real David. And you're not praying in the name of that Joshua. You don't feel like you got to go through that Joshua to get to your creator or mention him every time you mention the creator's name. Creator in the name of Yeshua HaMeshiach. No, that's a Christian spell you're under because Jesus is God and you got to connect all these things. You can't connect the message no more. I got to go through him. I got to mention that name. Call on this name. Call on my name. It's all good. There is no greater covenant that has to do with you than with David. No covenant after David supersedes the covenant of the love that the Creator has with David, which is why the love for you can never cease. Because you are the seeds of Dawid, just like Jesus, son of David, son of David, son of David. They have to keep linking that because that connection is so important. Because if he's not the son of David, then it's null and void. But because they left the door open and said, well, maybe it's going to be a seed. It's going to be a seed of David, son of David, son of David. Here we go. But if they say the David, then that crushes this whole JC situation. He is Zeus situation. But Zeus needs to have a way in. This is why the first AD year mentioned in the number of chronicles could have erroneously referred to 1054 AD. So when you say first year AD, it could easily be referring to 1054 AD. Year 1. This eventually gave birth to another chronological shift of 1,053 years. In other words, some of the medieval chroniclers were apparently accustomed to dating the nativity to either 1054 or 1053 instead of 1153, which is the correct dating. Man, why are they so sure? This ain't being taught in school, so you might want to look at it and dig on it. You're being taught year one, after birth, before Christ, after Christ, all that stuff like that. Year one is 1153, man. Wow. Yeah, man. 1153. Now tie that into your his story and see what David pops up. See what David pops up when you're just talking about 1052, 1053. And this is why David will be raised again, man. To the unwise do they seem to die. We're not even talking life and death. We're talking reality. We're talking your history. The young city has been in dire need of an ancient history which was promptly created. We're talking Rome. We're talking Vespasian and Titus, all this creation, when the real drop is coming way later. Even in that situation, that would make, what I'm saying, because before you have this Jesus and then you have this Titus Vespasian coming in 70 AD, and he supposedly had died at 33 AD or 31, right? So 40 years later comes Titus and Vespasian. So add 40 years to this 1152 situation, and now you got around 92. And then what? Genghis Khan comes against David in 1202. Bang, bow. Is that really the Vespasian we're talking about? We're talking phantoms and duplicates, man. 1054 or 1153. The year of the nativity, the birth of this HaMeshiach. Let's go right here, man. Let's pick up where we left off, man. Let's go ahead and get some flow. Let's get some flow, man. Matter of fact, let me play some flow real light. Some 4-3-2 balance and harmony, man. We about to go back into the mind of another hijack. Oh, we're going to get some Bam Bam. We're going to see what Bam Bam's doing after all this, man. This is the conclusion of this 3-part series, man. David the HaMeshiach. Goliath in the 1100s, man. Cult of Mithras, man. We done dug on that. We just taking it home. Let's get this last part, man. Let's go.
The beneath is the abyss. And the abyss is at the bottom of the wheel of astrology. It's a cosmology. They understood the sun came up on the horizon, and the sun would reign like Ra, like Horus, in the heavens. But who was up there in the heavens? Well, the bull god, right? In another video, we talked about Enlil was the god of the sky, and he looked like a bull. So that's the same kind of thing as Baal. And we were talking about in that video how we've been misled because Baal was really a Babylonian god, which was Enlil. And Enlil is the sky god, which is the Zeus god, and which according to the New Testament is the divine being.
You got it from the so-called Jew, now you're getting it from the so-called Christian, right? So, if you ain't got that whole first part, get the other parts of the series, or just, click the link and just get this, man. And you'll see that what this cat is doing is basically cursing the God of the Old Testament, saying that, he just tried to, he wanted you to sacrifice your children, and he prepared your hands for war. He's the God of war. But this bull god, right, this Marduk, right, this Baal, this Zeus, this Ra, he's the one in the sky raining down blessings. Man, these people is opening up to connect their Jesus and the things that our family's calling on with this Yeshua HaMashiach Jesus, with this Ra, with this Zeus, with this Mithras, with this Baal, with this bull. One more time.
Like Ra, like Horus, in the heavens. But who was up there in the heavens? Well, the bull god, right? In another video, we talked about Enlil was the god of the sky, and he looked like a bull. So it's the same kind of thing as Baal. And we were talking about in that video how we've been misled because Baal was really a Babylonian god, which was Enlil. And Enlil is the sky god, which is the Zeus god, and which according to the New Testament is the divine being.
Like Jesus. Zeus is Jesus.
And so now here's the tricky part. Here's the...
Uh-oh. Suit up. Here comes the hijack. Here comes the tricky part. When the hijack says it's tricky, oh boy, it's tricky icky.
I know this could stumble some of you.
Uh-oh.
But the Christian religion is really about
Uh-oh.
this particular deity that comes and dies for the sins of the world.
Uh-huh.
This particular deity comes to the world and dies on a cross.
Huh?
That's what Christianity's about. Goes into hell and conquers hell and rises again. Now in the
I never read that part with him going into hell, but please go on.
ancient cosmologies, the god that rivaled Jehovah was Baal. All the way through the Old Testament, Baal and Jehovah were arguing and fighting and warring and so forth. Baal had the horns of a bull. That's what Baal means, bull. Sometimes he's called Bel, but it means the bull. And he has two horns. That deity was a god who died and went into hell and came back up in the spring and gave life.
So Baal and Jesus did the same thing? Went into hell and came back up and gave life to who? He can't be talking about the so-called Negro. He must have gave life to you, Hijack City. So what they're telling you is that this story, even though we broke it down into the Mithras and the Zeuses already, he's giving his take on it, letting you know that this Jesus situation is connected to a hell situation, and he came back up, he rose back up to give life. I don't know who Jesus gave life to, especially since 1152, 1153 AD. But you see the comparison between Baal, Zeus, Enlil, and Jesus.
That's the meaning of this fertility symbol. Like I said before, Christians still celebrate Easter. It's a bunny. See, they're very fertile, and eggs is what a chicken gives birth to. So it has to do with fertility. See, it's not talking about worshiping sex. That's not what this is about. It's about life, and the spring comes, and the sky god has a thunderbolt. Zeus had a thunderbolt. Enlil had a thunderbolt. They were the sky god, and they came with the spring rains, with the summer and the spring, and it was vitality to the earth. It was fertility. And you took a bull and you plowed your fields because you knew that you were going to get some grain, some harvest, because you knew you were going to get life.
Man, they can tie anything together. So the bull worship, bull deities is now connected to you having a bull on the fields to harvest your fields so that you can eat. The thunderbolt has now to do with the fact that the Most High is giving you rain in the proper season. It must come from Zeus's thunderbolt. Now, I know this is more extreme than a lot of our brothers and sisters are when it comes to this Jesus situation, but you need to look at the extremes so that you know where it can go. Where when those gates are open and those fences are open for the tribe, where it can go. Right into the bull, right into the Marduk, right into the Enlil, right into the Zeus, right into the Osiris, right into the Mithras. It's too close for their home, for their life, for their excellent new tune. And it's all destroying and causing chaos in your ancient love song.
We're going to have a harvest. And so when they heard the thunderbolts of Enlil, or Zeus, they rejoiced, And they knew that the God had gone through the dark night and was going to rise again. You see, the story of Jesus going into hell is the same story as this Zeus and Enlil, Jupiter, but
Jupiter, Zeus, Enlil. One more time, because, don't hear from me. Hear from the Christian.
it was fertility. And you took a bull and you plowed your fields because you knew that you were going to get some grain, some harvest, because you knew you were going to get life. You were going to have a harvest. And so when they heard the thunderbolts of Enlil, or Zeus, they rejoiced. And they knew that the God had gone through the dark night and was going to rise again. You see, the story of Jesus going into hell is the same story as this Zeus. And
just drop the J. If you're going to tell me or your brother, Jesus, 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 oh, HaMeshiach, Jesus, if you're going to really stand on that word, some don't mess with it. Some, hey, they're bold. They'll tell you to your face, Jesus Christ. Please believe it's the same story on many levels as Zeus. Same birthday, same connection. That Joshua is not that Joshua. Yes, they're using similar talking points and similar threading through your ancient love song. But it don't take a brainiac to connect it all with the Enlils and the Zeuses.
Zeus had a thunderbolt. Enlil had a thunderbolt. They were the sky god. And they came with the spring rains, with the summer and the spring. And it was vitality to the earth. It was fertility. And you took a bull and you plowed your fields because you knew that you were going to get some grain, some harvest, because you knew you were going to get life. You were going to have a harvest. And so when they heard the thunderbolts of Enlil, or Zeus, they rejoiced. And they knew that the God had gone through the dark night and was going to rise again. You see, the story of Jesus going into hell is the same story as this Zeus and Enlil, Jupiter. But Jehovah is the other God. Jehovah's not the ruler of heaven. Jesus talked about the divine being as his Father in heaven. Jehovah was not the Father of heaven. He was the God of all the earth.
Heresy, blasphemy, and every word connected to it. Do you understand that there's a new God that's being presented to you, which is why you cannot say the Creator's name without mixing it in with this other frequency, because it's another frequency, and you wonder why you're in a state of confusion and separation and detachment, because that's what comes with the God of war when you're at war against your tribal flow. This is very serious for our tribe from coast to coast, plain to plain. When I talk tribe, I'm talking all my people. I'm in this for my whole tribe. All of you. I'm in it for you. We're in this together. We're in this together, man.
God had gone through the dark night and was going to rise again. You see, the story of Jesus going into hell is the same story as this Zeus and Enlil, Jupiter. But Jehovah is the other God.
The other God, who they're calling Jehovah, which they're just referring to the God of the so-called Old Testament, or the God of the Tanakh, or as Domenico de Vicio said in the Papal, that the framer and the shaper are referring to the God of the Tanakh, or the Old Testament. So there's another God in the Old Testament, and there's another God they're giving you with the new, excellent new tune, New Testament. So now you have another God, which is why the Christians literally say Jesus is God, Or, you have to go through Jesus to get the guy. Either way, you got to go through him. All power has been given to me.
Jehovah's not the ruler of heaven. Jesus talked about the
Hawa's not the ruler of the heavens. The creator's not the ruler of heaven. He's the ruler of hell now. And Zeus went to hell and came back to give you life, or Jesus, or Jesus.
divine being as his father in heaven. Jehovah was not the father of heaven. He was the God of all the earth. And he's the God of the abyss, of the waters, of many waters. Ea Enki was the God that was appointed over the abyss, and his father was Absu, which means the abyss. And when he conquered his father, he became the king of the abyss.
So he's tying in the Sumerian jargon with the Christian jargon, a little bit of the Hebrew, he's all over the place. Now the creator is just the God of the abyss. And Zeus or Baal or Jesus is now the one bringing life. You see what I'm saying? Call it extreme, but it's only because those gateways and pathways are already been opened in the sorcery, which is why we say no hijack allowed.
And he became a ruler over the world because he married Mother Earth for a while, basically raped her. Well, that's the story of the Old Testament. See, it's about a wedding, or shall we call it that, because it's really about slavery. This God Jehovah purchased Israel. That was his woman. And he put her under all these laws, and he made her his slave. And if she...
That's the story of the Old Testament. Now we know the drop about the redemption of Israel. About the redemption of Israel. As we were digging on before we got cut off in the last part. But now that says Hawa that created you. This is the Old Testament, all about slavery, right? O Jacob, and he formed thee, O Israel, fear not, for I have redeemed you. See, you've been put in slavery, and the Most High is redeeming you out of slavery, and you keep putting yourself in slavery because you can't simply follow the simple, basic flow of not putting no power before your power. It's a story of a father, a mother, and their children, that are disobedient, not listening, going their own way, worshiping idols, doing all these things, that then still get redeemed, that still have a remnant that gets redeemed, and a tribe that comes together with two sticks now being one stick, like we just read in Ezekiel. That's the story. Slavery. Come on, man.
He didn't obey, he could murder her. Not the same thing as the wedding that's in the New Testament, where Jesus is the bridegroom and he loves his wife, and he would give his body and lay down his life for her and love her. It's an entirely different thing, because it's a parable about two different things. There is that God who, you could say, rapes the woman or makes her his slave and puts her under bondage, which is Jehovah. And then he finally gets tired of her and throws her away. Yeah, it says that he threw her away.
He threw Israel away. When thou passest through the waters, I will be with you. And through the rivers thou shalt not overflow you. When thou walkest through the fire, you shall not be burned, neither shall the flame kindle upon you. For I am Hawa, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior. I gave Egypt for your ransom, Ethiopia and Seba for you, since you were precious in my sight. You have been honorable, and I have loved you. Therefore will I give men for you, and people for your life. Fear not, for I am with you. I will bring your seed from the east and gather you from the west. I will say to the north, give up, and to the south, keep not back. Bring my sons from afar, my daughters from the ends of the earth. Everyone called by my name, not Jesus, man. Oh, Jehovah is just about slavery, throwing his children away, raping the earth. For I have created him for my glory. I have formed him, framer, shaper, right? I have made him. Bring forth the blind people that have eyes and the deaf that have ears. And let all the nations be gathered and let the people be assembled. Who among them can declare this? Let them hear and say it is the truth. Therefore I have profaned the princes of the sanctuary and have given Jacob to the curse and Israel to the reproaches. Why? Thy first fathers have sinned and thy teachers have transgressed against me. Put me in remembrance. Let us plead together so that you might be justified. Most High said, even I am he that blots out the transgressions for my own sake and will not remember your sins. It don't sound like he threw you away. Even when he gave you to the reproach, Deuteronomy 28, it's a clear breakdown. But not everybody wants to break down your breakdown. Isaiah 44, hear now, O Jacob, my servant, and Israel, whom I have chosen. Don't sound like he threw you away. Thus says Ahchwa that made you and formed you from the womb, which will help you. Fear not, O Jacob, my servant, whom I have chosen, for I will pour water upon him that is thirsty, floods upon the dry ground. I will pour my spirit unto your seed and my blessing unto your offspring, and they shall spring up as among the grass and willows by the watercourses. Does it sound like your Creator threw you away? He hewn down cedars and takes cypress and oak, and has strengthened for himself among the trees of the forest. He plants an ash, and the rain does nourish it. Then shall it be for a man to burn, for he will take thereof and warm himself. Yea, he kindled it and baked bread. Yea, he made it God and worshipped it. He gave it a graven image. This is why you fail. Not because he hates you, but because of your graven images. Jesus. He is my shepherd, and shall perform all my pleasure, even saying to Jerusalem, they shall be built. Thou shalt be built, and to the temple thy foundation shall be laid. Even Cyrus was raised up for the Most High's purpose. The cities shall be inhabited. Thou shalt be inhabited. That saith to Jerusalem, you shall be inhabited, and to the cities of Judah you shall be built, and I will raise up the decayed places thereof. Sing, you O heavens, for Ahchwa hath done it. You lower parts of the earth break forth into singing, you mountains, O forests, and every tree therein, for the Lord Ahchwa has redeemed Jacob and glorified himself in Israel. Does it seem like he forgot about you, or that you're still being redeemed after all that transgression? That's a father and son. Remember, you are the firstborn son. Thus says Ahchwa, your Redeemer. He has formed you from the womb. I am Ahchwa that makes all things. Oh, he's not even the heaven. He's not even the God of the heaven, but he makes all things. That stretch forth the heavens alone. He stretched forth the heavens alone. But he's the God of the abyss. Where's this guy getting this, right? That spread abroad the earth by myself. You see, when you read It's a whole nother reality.
In the Old Testament, it says that he abandoned her, and he swore in his wrath that they would not enter into his rest, and he murdered many of them.
We just read that Jacob is redeemed. And you murder yourself when you break away from your flow.
But you see, Jesus, he loved us, and he did not come to condemn us. And he told his disciples, you are not my slaves. Because
I just want you to see how these things go against each other. So when you bring Jesus to the Indians that vibe with their great spirit, you're bringing them war.
a slave doesn't know what his master is doing. But I have told you all things. You are my friends. This is an entirely different deity, friends.
Deity. Jesus is their God. That new test is establishing the kingdom of Jesus. Right hand, all power has been given to me. Now this is benevolent. He would never hurt anyone because they don't overstand your relationship with your creator.
And so, being from the bottom of the wheel, his desire was to conquer the earth. But this God would soon be defeated by the God who went down into hell and conquered him there in the abyss.
So Jesus conquered Hawa.
So, I know it's a little confusing, friends, but all of this mythology has an interpretation. And we've been woefully ignorant of the meanings of these things, friends.
For sure.
Because all the way through the Greek New Testament, it says Theos is God. And
the Greek New Testament, drop the J, Zeus.
Theos is go back into Greek, look at the classical Greek writings and look at the mythologies, and you'll see this is absolute certain. There's no question about this. Zeus is Theos. It's just another spelling of that same word.
Wow.
And so, meanings of these things, friends. Because all the way through the Greek New Testament, it says Theos is God.
Theos is God, therefore who's God?
And Theos is go back into Greek, look at the classical Greek writings and look at the mythologies, and you'll see this is absolute certain. There's no question about this. Zeus is Theos.
So Zeus is Theos, Theos is God, so Zeus is God, Jesus is God. This is why you pray in the name of his Yeshua HaMeshiach.
It's just another spelling of that same word. And so it means the shining or the heavenly God.
Oh, the shining one, like Lucifer, Zeus, Jupiter.
And so also Jesus talked about Uranus being his father, Pater Uranos, and that was Father in heaven. So Uranus was a Greek god, and that goes back to the Sumerian Anu. And Anu was the god of heaven. See, when the sun was in the sky, it rained. But when it got to the other end of the horizon and it began to set, the Egyptians call that god Set. And so Set became our Satan, or the darkness, or the evening. And that's when this dark forces overcame the light, and they had this big battle. And down through the dark night, they would wage their battle. And so the Bible says Jesus went down into hell and waged war with the dragon. And he was in there.
Of course he's at war with the dragon. David's not at war with the dragon.
There for 3 days and 3 nights, and was resurrected, and he ascended up out of hell, bringing his wife Inanna, or Sophia, or whoever particular, or Sophia, or Venus, or whatever god or goddess you want in your particular pantheon. Now, in many of the other videos that I've done, we've shown that Ea, the Sumerian god Ea, is Yahweh. It's just a longer tense of the same word. And that deity, his father was the Absu. His mother was Tiamat, the great dragon. So, Yah then did a lot of things for his mother. And in the Sumerian...
So, in that version, this Yah is the son of this dragon Tiamat. and he rocked with the dragon. You might need to start putting it together.
Tablets, you see, it was the other gods that told Yah they wanted him to murder his father Apsu. Well, when he did that, he became the king of the Apsu, or the abyss. But then they wanted to kill Tiamat. And so in the book of Isaiah, in the book of Psalms of our Bible, Yahweh takes credit for killing Rahab the dragon, which is the Hebrew way of saying Tiamat the dragon. And it says he splits him in two and makes the heavens and the earth with him. That's part of the Sumerian tale.
It's also what happened to Leviathan in some sacred texts, that he was sacrificed and he was made as the canopy and the light or the firmament. You know what I mean? Leviathan dragon, Tiamat dragon. Leviathan also had a female counterpart that was supposed to be slain in the beginning, which might be the Tiamat dragon. Oh boy.
But even in the Sumerian tablets, they say that Yahweh never really finished the job. But later on, he had a son named Marduk, and he's born of a virgin, and he conquers the great dragon.
Another one born of the virgin that goes up against the dragon, just like Zeus, just like Zeus.
So, Jesus then is the one who went to hell and conquered the great dragon. Born of the virgin Semiramis, or Meramis,
Semiramis,
or Mary. So Jesus is the God that's the hero that comes along and kills the dragon for good.
Jesus is the hero. And your actual creator is the enemy. And this is what this Jesus leads to. Choose your Joshua.
Even if Jehovah tries to take credit,
because you can't say, screw all this, I'm going to choose that Joshua in the Old Testament, but these are his words over here, and this is his story. Because you're talking about a completely different story written for a completely different purpose with a completely different power.
For it, he never actually did it. Because when he killed Leviathan that was in the sea, which is supposed to be Egypt, see, the Pharaoh is the great Leviathan, and Jehovah goes down in there and murders Pharaoh, and he drowns in the sea. But you see, he didn't really save his bride, the woman. He just brought them into the desert, and they went around and around, and they all died.
Who all died? All the Israelites died in the desert? And this guy's on that play.
So, he didn't really conquer the dragon, but in actuality, he put in place a different beast, a government of law to bring us into bondage and into slavery. They were worried about that dragon who was going to enslave us and deceive us. But you see, that dragon was the mother of Yah. And so they had this pact, and they ruled together. So this...
Oh. Mama. The DraKhan. Wisdom. Shekinah. DraKhan. Ruling together. Pact. So one is with the dragon, one is against the dragon. Choose your frequency. Choose up.
Tiamat, the dragon, creates this Kingu, which is the king, and the bestial governments on earth that rules over us, which with her son, who creates the laws, they create government. So this is what this is all about. And that is why in Colossians it says that Jesus, when he went to hell, he conquered the law, and he nailed it to the cross.
So it's all about destroying the law of the Creator, nailing it to the cross. There's no more law. Now you're lawless, right? Now you can kill and steal and do all this shit because there's no law.
Law or government was our enemy, was our curse. It enslaved.
They want to be in chaos and they want to be lawless, but they love these, corporate laws. They got a bunch of traffic laws, but they don't want to follow the Creator's laws because they were never given the Creator laws. You're talking the Gentile, the hijack, Zeus, right?
Enslaved us, it was bondage, and Jesus is our hero, and he conquered it, and he gave us freedom and liberty.
Wow.
So that's what that's all about. because the feathered serpent was really the god that went down into hell and came up victoriously.
Any documentation? The feathered serpent went into hell and came up victorious?
Who said to the Native Americans in the Popol Vuh, I shall return, I will come as you see me go. So this...
He said he gonna return, said nothing about going into hell and nailing the law to the cross, this Quetzalcoatl. So now you're syncretinizing the Quiche story with the New Testament just to make this, real silly, and really, it's gut-wrenching to hear these people talk, man. But I'm hearing you got the extreme Jew, you got the extreme Christian, and maybe we can find a connection so that we can steer clear of the interference. But now Quetzalcoatl, right? Because now he has to link him with Joshua. But the Mormons call Quetzalcoatl Jesus, but he's skipping over Joshua to get to Jesus, to now claim Quetzalcoatl that only rock with these Ame'ricans that connected directly to their great spirit. They didn't have to go through Quetzalcoatl to get to Hawaii. But now he went through hell, so he's the hero with Jesus and Zeus and Baal. Now they're hijacking Quetzalcoatl too.
This was the God that we also today here in this country worship. Now remember, there was a prophecy that's...
Worship. They worship Jesus.
Says that in America, no God but Jesus would ever be worshipped.
No God but Jesus will ever be worshipped in America. Ain't this some shit? This is how he's trying to tie in Quetzalcoatl like we worship in Quetzalcoatl. These people were led to the promised land by Hawaii through Quetzalcoatl or Joshua. Let's go.
The prophet Joseph Smith said this, that this was a dedicated area, America, and that only the true God would ever be worshipped in this country.
The true power, framer and shaper, Papal.
At least, I guess, nationally, because I'm sure there are different gods worshipped in different little cults and groups throughout the world. But it's interesting that the Native Americans are still going back to their Quetzalcoatl, who arrived from the east and gave them learning and teachings and love and taught them nice things, and then left on the clouds of heaven and said he would return.
Left on the clouds of heaven? You mean on the DraKhan, the rainbow dragon, the rainbow in the sky? Choose your Joshua.
So, but if you're looking at all of these particular deities, and you're looking at them from the point of view that, our God's the true God and everyone else is pagan, you're not understanding that the Old Testament is part of the same paganistic religions that are in every other nation. And that particular God was just one of these gods who fought and clawed his way up to the top of the mountain and tried killing all the other gods, and he took his turn in the aeons and ruled for a period of time. See, that was the darkness that was past, and now we're going into the light. And then you understand that Christ is an entirely different thing. Your father is the devil, he said, and he is a murderer and a liar, and you wish to do the desires of your father. But my father is light, and he's love, and there is no darkness within him. And he's...
What's he talking about? Where's he quoting from? Jesus said, your father's the devil? To who? Israelites? All right, man.
It's above and not beneath. And he sent me to give you life, and that more abundantly, because the sun's going to rise, friends. So that's an entirely different thing. So this gives us a little bit of an idea of why, the Catholic Church is putting on this fish head. Because you see, they're steeped in the past. Their God that they worship is not the true and living God, but it's some kind of a fish. And I'm looking down at the clock, and it looks like we're almost an hour.
And I guess we're done, right? This is part 3. We're talking HaMeshiach. And I know it's a sensitive topic for some. But you got the extremes, and you see that they're rooted in nothing but absolute, muddy, infested swamp. No one's rooted in the actual foundations. The rabbis telling you that the foundation is that King David is the Mashiach, and that now all these, interpretations are now saying, but how can he be Mashiach if he's dead? And It says will versus have, and all these other, remixes, man. It's for you to see clearly, use your common sense, put it together, put the information together, and most of all, through your ruach that the Creator has given you, you should be able to see clearly, have eyes to see, ears to hear, and have a heart that flows with your reality. Return to your ancient love song. Because whether you're talking the return of Quetzalcoatl or the raising of King David, all of it is in line with the ancient love song. And the Zeus frequency, the Zeus frequency, the excellent new tune, all of it creates war, chaos, frustration, and separation. And it happens time and time again. And for our tribe, we rock as one drop, one flow. We remember Hawa. We remember our HaMeshiach, our high messengers. We know that we are all returning for a reason. And we know we got one shepherd. And when we seek Hawa, we seek Dawit. Halal Hawa, Dawada, Kwam Shabata. Peace and power.